Welcome to Pumpkin Spice Podcast. I'm Rob Schulte.
I'm Brittany High.
And here we are, ahead of another great fall episode. We're about to hear the Child's Play 2 episode that Graham and I recorded, yesterday.
That was so recent.
I know. No, we didn't. We recorded it months ago. But I think it gives you an idea that you're here with me, Brittany. I'm there with you. Graham's in Texas, shooting films and hosting game shows and wrangling cattle, I can only assume.
Obvious.
I got a lot to say. But first off, you just went to Staples and it was more exciting than I could have imagined.
Well, I was at Staples. I'm looking for hanging file folders. I know, I'm a monster. Who am I? When did I become this person? But it made me reflect on a conversation you and I had recently where you texted me, I just sent you a spreadsheet, and my response was, cool. And then I thought, looking back over our friendship like 10 years ago when we'd just like get high in a, apartment, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, you mean not the times we got high in a dumpster?
Yeah, right, exactly. It's just, they're different.
Different highs.
Different highs. If you would have told me back then that, one day you would be saying something as nerdy as, I sent you a spreadsheet, and my response was going to be cool, and that was actually
exclamation.
Yeah, that I was, but I was completely genuine. I don't know that I would have believed you. I would have been like, you're on crazy pills. What kind of people do we become? I don't understand.
I guess this is growing up, Brittany. In that same vein, I made a purchase that I was so excited about over the weekend, and then once I got home, I was just like, oh my God. I never thought I would be this excited.
What was it?
I was with my girlfriend, and I stepped into a local butchery that also had cast iron pots.
Oh.
And I got a cast iron skillet.
That's a solid purchase.
Here's the thing. I was excited to have, good cookware, and then I was like, you know what? I probably need the lid.
Go big or go home.
The set. And then I was like, oh, does it come with the lid? She's oh, no. Lid sold separately.
That's how they get you.
Am I ever going to use a lid? I don't know.
Well, you better
but I'm
use it.
Be happy when I have it.
Yeah, one day you'll thank yourself.
All I really want to do is just cook a big old breakfast scramble in this thing. But they say I'm not supposed to cook eggs for at least 2 weeks of use.
Oh, is that the case?
I don't really know. All I know is that I get most of my cast iron skillet knowledge from Judge John Hodgman.
Well, I'm going to have to look that up because my cast iron skillet needs to be reseasoned.
I will send you a Instagram video that will just save your life in terms of cast iron skillets.
Please do. This turned into a spooky podcast into a home lifestyle podcast.
Yes, it's like the home and garden network of horror movie podcasts, Brittany.
You get it all here. You get your scaries, and you hear about how to season a skillet.
Much like last week, after this week, we're going to play a little sample of our new upcoming show, the TV show.
It's a little snippet to keep you wanting more.
Oh, yeah, and you're going to get the whole thing soon enough. The listeners will, at least. But I got some positive feedback after last week's episode.
What was it?
Good pod, would listen.
Oh, that is so nice.
I'll keep them anonymous because, that's such a phrase. I don't want them to feel awkward.
Yeah, they're like, well, in the future, I'm not going to give feedback because they called me out last time.
A lot of good things going. More donors into the Patreon feed, so more bonus episodes coming.
Big time.
Yeah, Graham and I watched Pin from 1988, which is free on YouTube if anyone wants to watch that. You and I are going to be doing this next bonus episode on I Know What You Did Last Summer.
I don't even know what I did last summer. You know what I'm saying?
Another thing that's creepy about getting old.
Yeah. I'm like, what was I doing? Well.
Brittany, you've got I got to give you I don't have to, but I would like to give you a task.
Please.
When watching I Know What You Did Last Summer.
I need more things to do.
Please just report back to me on which characters are believable and which characters are not. We can have all of our other fun things, but I'd love to know your perspective because I've got some thoughts on that as well. And I think if we just come to the table guns blazing on believability in this movie.
Believability.
That's going to be a baseline of us to start at.
Deal.
Because I think the movie had potential to out-scream Scream, but we'll see if it actually did.
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't have Wes Craven. It had the dude from Dawson's Creek, so...
Seriously. Hey, speaking of staples, sorry, but we're gonna, what do the business people say, circle back. I just need to get something off my chest, and maybe you can answer this question for me, but spreadsheets, did they exist before there were computers? Because that just feels like a paper spreadsheet just seems so much effort.
I was just thinking that when you were talking about it. I was just like, wow, what did people do before computers with spreadsheets? And then I remembered pencils? And then I remembered those erasers for big mistakes.
It's a nightmare.
Yeah, speaking of nightmares, maybe we should get into Child's Play 2.
Just really quickly, though. Just rate and review,
all right.
and then do the episode.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Pumpkin Spice Podcast. I'm Graham Young here in Austin, Texas, and over in New York City we have...
Rob Schulte.
Hey, how's it going, Rob?
Hey, doing great. I am enjoying this season.
Yeah, this is an interesting season. It took me, I must admit, a little while to warm up to the Chucky idea, but we're here and we're doing it, and we just watched Child's Play 2. And Rob, initial thoughts?
Didn't like it as much as the first one, but not giving up on it.
Yeah. The second one...
I thought it raised a lot of... Sorry, but I thought it raised a lot of interesting questions about, like, what you do with a horror franchise in the second film. We saw a little bit of a stutter step with Nightmare on Elm Street, but that ended up being, like, wildly entertaining to watch. Whereas
it's the best stutter step you could possibly have.
Yeah. And in this one, it's like more than a stutter step and felt like more of a chore.
Yes. And we're sort of in full franchise mode at this time. This felt like a franchise film from the get-go to me. Yeah,
they definitely decided that they had a open door policy.
He's the original. He'll take your breath away. This fall, Chucky rules.
Did you miss me, Andy? I sure missed you.
Child's Play 2. Keep an eye out for
it. You're right, Rob. It's interesting to see these franchises, like, once they have a hit, like what they do with it afterwards. And bringing up Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2 and definitely Child's Play 2, they sort of stumbled. But I definitely like Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2 better than Child's Play 2. But not
Same.
to get all... Let's start with some positives, Rob. As far as like what stuck out in the film to me, I thought that the puppetry looked really good.
There was obviously a higher budget to this film, but there was something about like... not to constantly compare it back to Child's Play, the first one, but like there was like a Jaws effect in that one. You know, like they had limited puppetry to work with.
Yes.
So...
And that's maybe arguably why the film was better.
I was a little more frightened, but also that was like, you know, the whole first half of that one, you're not sure if it's Chucky or not, even though you obviously know it's him from the beginning. Different discussion. Listen to the previous episode.
Yes.
And I think that this suffered a bit from it, even though you got some amazing looking scenes, like when Chucky is burying the Tommy doll in the backyard. That looked cool.
Yes.
Although that was probably like forced perspective in someone in a costume.
I think that the art design was very good in the film, and the way it was photographed. When the what am I trying to say? The nerd from the corporation.
Look, I don't carry cash. I got a gold card. I'll give you anything you want. Tell me what you want. Well,
he gets murdered in his car, and I thought that was looked pretty good.
Well, Graham, let's come back to this in just a second, because you know how we're segment crazy this season, right?
Yes.
Well, we've jumped to what stuck out, which is creating a very strong discussion, but I think we need to go to a film overview, just in case anyone jumped into this episode not watching the film.
I must warn you, this is a very complex plot.
Well, that's
ins
good.
and outs.
That's why I went to the Internet Movie Database, much like in the first episode of this season. The overview that popped up on the screen for me, I guess the highest rated, the most popular, by a one Phil Fernando. Would you like to hear what Phil had to say?
Phil, sum it up for us.
Andy Barclay has been placed in a foster home after the tragic events of the first film, since his mother was committed. In an attempt to save their reputation, the manufacturers of Chucky reconstruct the killer doll to prove to the public that nothing was wrong with it in the first place. In doing so, they also bring the soul of serial killer Charles Lee Ray back to life. As Chucky tries to locate Andy, the body count rises. Will Andy be able to escape, or will Chucky succeed in possessing his body?
Wow. Well, Rob, I'll go ahead and stop you right there, because I thought that the opening scene of the film made absolutely no sense to me, and it was the reconstruction of Chucky. They clean it up so the public wouldn't even know that that was the actual doll that tried to murder the kid. It looked like a regular Chucky doll. The Chucky doll from the first film, of course, was burned and shot through the heart and looked like crap. And of course, they clean it up in the opening scenes to the second film.
Well, and it's like, is it even the same doll?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not exactly sure how the mysticism works with the eyeballs and the electricity putting his soul back in the doll. But suspending disbelief there for a moment, what do they have to prove? I mean, legalities? I don't know.
Well, it's almost like they were trying to create sort of an evil corporation vibe, like we kind of had like in RoboCop. I don't know. It was just this film is very...
I guess they justify it in the film that, like, if we prove that the doll... there was nothing wrong with the doll, then no one can sue us. If that holds up in court. And I guess that's cool, but like what you said was perfectly fine. Why wouldn't you just show a different doll?
And
I mean, if they're already an evil corporation.
They immediately like bring the doll back to life, and then he just goes and kills someone. So it's and here's another thing, Rob, that we could just get into just for a second. The motivation for Charles Lee Ray in the doll Chucky is to possess the body of Andy, right?
Yes.
The little boy. Okay.
Yes.
So when he's murdering people just for the fun of it, it takes away from the focus, his goal, his mission in the film to get into this boy's body. I think that there's some real motivation problems with Chucky. I don't, just from my perspective.
Sure, and you can see that like Don Mancini and David Kirshner are inching towards like, how much do we want to make Chucky like a Bart Simpson? You know, like how many quips does he get? You know, the face moves a lot more. We can do a lot more with that. Obviously, we know how that kind of turns out, even though I haven't seen a lot of the later Chucky movies.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned Bart Simpson because, like, there's a notorious scene that we'll get into in just a second with a school teacher, and she's reprimanding Andy, the little boy, and he turns in his homework assignment, and it says, "Fuck you, bitch." And that was like a laugh out loud moment for me. So I guess the producers and the director got me there. I did think that was funny. But again, we're running into some motivational problems with our main antagonist in the film.
Well, and it seemed pretty early on in the film that Chucky found out he could not bond with Andy. I mean, it very well could have been halfway through the film. This is pretty short. It's only like 84 minutes, I think.
It is the shortest one in the series, I believe, Rob.
Yeah. So, like, he didn't bond with Andy in the first one. He finds out at least halfway through here that he can't bond with Andy. And then it's like, in terms of motivation, Graham, where did you, if you could latch on to the Andy one, once he finds out he can't be human again, why is he so upset with these people specifically?
Yeah, he brought this terror into their lives, and now he's pissed off that it didn't work out for him. But here's a question for you, Rob. Why they gave no reason why he couldn't be a human again? It's just like, I ran out of time.
Yeah, it's like, you make the rules, dudes.
You know, like the clouds start to come over the building and the lightning starts to strike, and then all of a sudden it just goes away. Like he was like seconds away.
Yeah, it's odd because his motivation, Graham, through the whole film is to bond with Andy. He doesn't really have to kill the teacher in what you were talking about prior.
Yeah, he didn't have to kill the parents.
He didn't have to kill the toy guy. He didn't have to kill the parents, yeah.
So that was kind of fun. And I know that he's like a murderer, a serial killer.
But we also don't know anything about that.
What was the something strangler? I can't remember.
Oh, yeah. That brings up another interesting little tidbit here, since we're segment heavy, remember. Fun little thing. In the tie-in novelization to this film, the author had added in some of his own plot scenes exclusive to the novel, and it goes a little deeper into Andy and Chucky's past. Chucky is characterized to have an absent father and his abusive mother being a dwarf. Chucky got teased a lot because of this and later strangled his mother to death. Also, Chucky was put in special classes when he was younger. Okay, so
he's a special needs kid.
I guess, yeah.
Wow.
But he seems pretty capable, but he's a serial killer.
Gosh, that kind of like backstory reminds me of like Rob Zombie's Halloween, where he felt like he had to like over-explain the character of Michael Myers.
He likes to make masks.
Like, the great thing about Halloween is that he's killing people for, you can't figure out the reason. It could happen in any neighborhood in America. But in Rob Zombie's, of course, he has the alcoholic stepfather and his mom's a stripper and he's bullied at school and all this other stuff. And it's... But
I didn't care.
But I guess you try and find whatever you can if you're writing the novelization of Child's Play 2.
Yeah, there's not much to go on in there, is there?
Lakeshore Strangler, though, I gotta say, Charles Lee Ray in his biopic on Horror Film Wiki, he's got some like herbal essence in his hair. He had some locks. I know you said you were a fan last episode.
Yeah, I thought he looked kind of cool. You know, I mean, he kind of looked like a younger Wormtongue from Lord of the Rings, I guess.
Yeah. Graham, what shampoo do you use?
Whatever Brad Dourif is using, that's what I want to use.
He's got some sort of style that escapes me right now.
It's pre-goth, pre-grunge.
Post-new wave.
He was a innovator in the sort of mopey hair looks.
How's it hanging, Phil?
This came out 1 week before Home Alone. And Home Alone also takes place in the Chicago area.
Yes. So you're saying that they exist in the same universe?
Well, if they did, where do you think they would intersect?
With the bandits. I think that the water bandits or whatever.
The wet bandits?
Yeah, I think Chucky's going to take
later to be known as the Sticky Bandits?
Yeah, the Sticky Bandits, yeah.
Do you think they had an encounter with Charles Lee Ray?
Well, if they had, they wouldn't be alive. I think that they'll probably make an appearance in the next Chucky film.
Really?
Yeah. Certain about that.
I don't know, man, because they go to New York because they go to jail and then they go to New York. You think they're going back to Chicago? I don't know.
Home Alone ceases to be a Chicago film in part 2. I was just going to say that, you know, Chicago really had some problems in 1990. Children's toys killing people, parents forgetting their children at home while they go on vacation in France.
What's your name, buddy?
Chucky.
We haven't even talked about characters yet. That might speak for itself because everyone was pretty beige and boring. Andy had upped his acting ability, and then his like foster sister's like cool girl reminded me of like a Daria type.
Yeah.
And she ends up killing Chucky at the end. She sticks the air hose in Chucky's head when he explodes.
Which is that's how Chucky dies in this film. It was very similar to the death of the Raiden-esque character in Big Trouble in Little China.
Uh-huh.
I thought maybe they had ripped that off from John Carpenter. So, John, it's time to lawyer up.
Yeah, you probably need it.
But I was going to say, it was cool to see Garrett Graham in the movie, and I do like him, just not because his name is Graham. He's sort of he was in Brian De Palma's Phantom of the Paradise. So, again, it was great to see him in the film. And, of course, Grace Zabriskie from Twin Peaks was the head of the orphanage. I don't know if you recognized her or not, Rob, but she was a little Twin Peaksy in this.
I did not.
Yeah, acting a little weird in the film, but I guess that's just her character.
Apparently, Christina Elise, who plays the foster sister, comes back in Cult of Chucky.
Yeah, and I think the kid that plays Andy does too.
Well, I am trying to avoid looking ahead too much, but sometimes when you have like the Amazon X-ray on.
Yeah, I'm just glad that we could finally get these characters back into this series. They were so like instrumental in the success of the series, and that hiatus really killed us back in the 2000s.
Graham, do you think you'd survive if you were in this movie?
Yes, because I don't think that Chucky is like a little doll, and again, like, yeah, he's menacing and he can hide in places and get you, but really, you just kick him. Just kick him really hard across the room. And then run away.
They haven't said anything about like proportionate strength of a adult man either. So I'm wondering how strong he really is. I mean, we get glimpses of it.
That's a good point, Rob. I don't think they've really shown that off in the films thus far.
And I mean, much like last season when we were trying to figure out what Jason is, I don't think we need a running list of what it's not or what Chucky is, but I think we need to keep these things in mind as the series progresses.
So at this point, Rob, do you feel that it's lightning that brings Chucky back to life, or is it evil voodoo? I say evil because there's probably some good voodoo out there.
Graham, I don't know if it's an either or, because regardless, when he starts chanting, do you know what language he's chanting in?
It's French.
Okay, so when he's speaking French,
give me the power, I beg of you.
The clouds form and everything's coming up Chucky, but we learn in this movie that he cannot become Andy. It's been too long. He can't transfer, so he's just there. What's the point?
Yeah. I mean, after the second film, they're pretty much like these mystical powers don't work anymore, so what are they going to rely on for the rest of the series? This is a very good question, Rob.
Do you think they'll go down like a different mysticism or like crystals or something?
You know, it's funny because I have seen part 3, Rob, but I haven't seen it since the 90s, so I don't remember anything about it.
I don't think I've ever seen part 3.
I just remember that it takes place in a military school, but we'll get there. We'll get there.
No, maybe I have. I wonder if, I've got a story for you about this. I know we end up going on tangents sometime, Graham, but I think the fans have expressed that they like it. Would you like to hear a story about Child's Play 2?
Yes, yeah, I'd love to.
I've said, like, Nightmare on Elm Street Dream Warriors was the first movie, like, I remember watching it, and I have, like, these sensation memories, but not paying attention to it. And I think I explained that in Season 1. But Child's Play 2 was the first time I remember being like, strap in, you're about to watch a horror movie for the first time. Because although I don't remember where I was at, the kids that were there were a little bit older than me. They played this movie, and I asked what it was, and I was asking like what happened before, because I didn't know why this doll was being assembled from burnt pieces, and I got a little nervous. I was like, oh, okay, so this is like an evil doll, and there's like mysticism, and I made it all the way through, but I don't think I ever remember really being scared. I think I was scared of the thought of being scared.
Yeah. The idea of the film is scary. The film itself is actually a little kinda lame.
Yeah, because I would have had to have been like This came out in 1990. I was 6 then, so by the time it was able to be watched on HBO or VHS, I was probably, maybe 8 or 9. So it's weird knowing that this is the first horror movie that I was like full understanding of the storyline. Do you have a horror movie like that?
Yeah, Texas Chainsaw for me was a film that has never gotten out of my head. But yeah, my apologies that film was Child's Play 2 for you, Rob. I mean, it's interesting to me that that's the film that left the impact on you. So that just shows how strong the horror genre is, maybe.
Well, and I didn't remember that until I watched this film. You know, so it obviously didn't stick with me very much. But now
Did you
that
get
I've
emotional?
seen it again,
Did you cry?
Brought back some regression therapy.
Yeah, there you go. It's nice to watch Child's Play 2 and have a good cry.
Graham, tell me some of your favorite parts of this one, though.
I liked the art design of the actual toy shop. Towards the end of the film, they have like this, you know the hedge maze from The Shining. They have a maze in this, but it's made of Chucky doll boxes. And it's actually kind of visually really cool. And that whole set of the toy factory was really cool. They just didn't do anything cool with it.
That whole idea of like the brightly colored doll factory was really silly to me because it seemed like the most inefficient way to make those dolls.
Yeah. It was sort of an unbelievable toy
also
factory.
Not the cheapest way.
Yeah, exactly. That really stuck out to me, Rob, but also something else. And when I was watching Child's Play 2, I really got vibes, or problem child vibes. And
I did too, especially in that house.
Yeah, well that, and I think that the orphanage and the kid trying to find a good home with good parents and
red hair.
I really got problem child vibes with Child's Play 2.
And let's see here, Child's Play came out in July of 1990, so just a couple months before this film.
I wonder if they were produced by the same company. I'm not sure. But they both kind of had a, let's just say, not a real politically correct view of adoption.
No.
You know, if you're going to adopt somebody from an orphanage, that kid's going to be a real pain in the ass. And
yeah,
I mean,
and also
even the father says, this kid's a pain in the ass.
Yeah, but it's like, it didn't seem like they were going to be there permanently, right? Weren't they just like temp foster parents? Like, they weren't adopting them. They were just living there until a family wanted to keep them forever.
That's true. But I thought that the mother...
Not that they should have treated them any worse because of that.
Sure.
I'm just saying. Like,
I think that the mother tried to actually develop a connection with the boy where the dad was just like, fuck this kid.
He's like, rule number 37.
Yeah.
He was like Quark.
Running or breaking things. And rule number 38... no bringing dolls that are possessed by serial killers in the house. For the last time.
Graham, you missed my Deep Space Nine reference.
Did I? Oh my God, I can't believe that went over my head. Say that again.
I said the dad had so many rules, he was like Quark.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. Now you're going to bring Quark into it? Okay, yeah.
Little rules of acquisition?
Yes, of course.
Don't you know the first rule of acquisition? Yes, brother. Then say it.
Check out our behind-the-scenes discussion on Star Trek after this episode, everyone.
No, they can just go listen to Greatest Gen.
Yes, go listen to that. It's very good.
We've expressed our thoughts and all of the discussion that this film brought to the both of us. I want to go back to IMDb, and much like how I found the overview of the film as the one that populated on the screen when I went to this film's page, let's see the one from for the review section. This review got 7 out of 10 stars. The title was Fun Sequel with a Good Cast. Child's Play 2 picks up not long after where its infamous predecessor left off, and straight into the film, the ordinary good guy doll housing the spirit of the Lakeshore Strangler is being fixed up, and good guys are back in action. While unfortunately, Chris Sarandon and Catherine Hicks do not return. They are at least mentioned and given plausible reasons as to why they could not be in the movie. Innocent Andy Barclay, even though it says Andit Barclay, Alex Vincent, however, returns and is once again at the mercy of Chucky, voiced by the classic Brad Dourif. When Chucky chases Andy down to where he is living in foster care, from here, the typical mayhem follows, with plenty of doll-style murders, witty lines from Chucky, and a great finale at the Good Guy Doll Factory. Second paragraph. I guess the review is about to happen.
Oh my gosh.
While the original Child's Play is a terrific classic, Part 2 is somewhat of a step down, only because one knows what to expect for the most part. However, the cast are a great asset to the film. Alex Vincent is right on the mark in his role as Andy, Christine Elise is terrific as foster sister Kyle, and Ginny Agutter adds a touch of class as their foster mother, Joanne Simpson. Garrett Graham plays her strict husband, and Grace Zabriskie is good in her role as the career at the orphanage. I don't know what that means. Beth Grant steals the moment in her small role as Mrs. Ketwell, however. Overall, a fun sequel to the original with a well-rounded cast and plenty of thrills to keep one entertained.
Well, this person certainly had a good time with it. And, you know, we were talking about the cast. I think in his first paragraph, he mentioned Chris Sarandon. Quick trivia for you, Rob. He's the reason Susan is called Susan Sarandon.
Ah.
They were married from 1967 to 1979, but she kept his name. So goes to show that Chris Sarandon's a pretty cool dude.
What's another movie that Chris Sarandon has been in?
Well, there's been many. I think most people know Chris Sarandon as Prince Humperdinck, of course, from Princess Bride. But
sure,
I
yes.
love him as the character in Dog Day Afternoon. He's the guy that's wanting to have a sex reassignment surgery. He's the reason why Al Pacino is robbing the bank. He's only in the movie for like 5 minutes, but man, he's fantastic. He's a great actor.
Yeah, and he does play the role of a cop very well.
Yeah, he plays a good straight guy. And he's also the head vampire in Tom Holland's Fright Night, which, if you haven't checked it out, man, it is so good.
You know, another that guy is Garrett Graham.
Yes.
The guy who plays the foster dad. Like,
if you work for Brian De Palma, you are automatically an amazing actor.
He was in My Girl Part 2.
Sure.
You'd notice him there. He was in, like, Chopping Mall, if you've seen that. Maybe if you've listened to this.
Great movie. Probably.
He was the creepy teacher in Sidekicks, one of my personal favorites.
Yeah, of course.
I love Sidekicks, man. It's such a ridiculous movie.
Yeah, it's a teen fantasy action movie, The Movie.
With Chuck Norris.
With Chuck Norris, exactly.
And Jonathan Brandis, R.I.P. But
if we're talking Garrett Graham, Rob, I got to ask, have you seen Terror Vision from 1986?
I have not.
Okay, that movie rules, and I think if you're going to go on a Garrett Graham, just watching all his films, start with Terror Vision. That's a very, very good film. And it's got John Grice, and I don't think it gets better than John Grice. So that is, like Chris Sarandon, he's a damn fine actor.
I've spent too much time in his body! I'm fucking trapped in here!
Do you have any final thoughts about this film that could maybe lead us towards what we're going to see or expect to see in Part 3? Last time we talked about like what we would do different.
Yeah.
And I think we should discuss that before we end this episode.
Well, what I would have done differently is just burn the fucking doll from the get-go because it is so... I don't know. I would not have that thing in my house. It does... It's not like Annabelle, the doll, where no parent on earth would buy that for their kid. But Chucky, as soon as I see those brows sort of furrow, I'm throwing that thing in the fireplace.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to trash this thing, and it would be very easy. I think that's where they're lacking. We need to know a reason of why we can't just destroy this.
And honestly, Rob, I think both of us would survive because if Chucky came at us, we just kick it across the room and run. I think that's all you need to do with Chucky. He's not that menacing.
Yeah, hop in a car and drive a number of distances.
Yeah. The doll will eventually track you down, but then you just kick it and repeat.
Dropping in some acid.
Yeah.
They almost did that on this time. They just didn't let the acid disintegrate him. Is that the right way of saying it? Like melt him completely.
There you go. Yeah.
Graham, the thoughts I have when watching films like this, it's...
Well, hopefully they're how to make these films a little bit better. I think that 2 could have used a script sort of revision, but it wasn't torture, but it's not a movie I would recommend. I recommend the first one over this for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Andy!
Rate us on iTunes and all that sort of stuff. It's always great. It's like, it doesn't cost any money. Give us 5 stars. You tell people you like it in the review section, and it helps us out.
Yeah, I mean, we're not perfect people. And
hey, you know what's interesting? I just want to talk this through before we get out of here.
Yes.
The cover of the first Child's Play movie is like the apartment with lightning and like Chucky's face is in the top corner, right?
Yeah.
Or his eyes are in the sky.
Yeah, exactly.
Child's Play 2 is, Chucky with the Jack-in-the-Box with the giant scissors.
Yes.
And I think that's great because it almost like looks like 2 because of the 2 blades and
yeah,
it's toys. It's great. 3 is just his face.
That's my favorite poster.
You think is just that? Like, this is what you're getting? I guess he's got the little bit of blood coming from his lip. Red
it's
eyes.
Not subtle at all. He looks creepy as all get out, and I think I think that's a really cool image. We'll find out if the movie lives up to the poster next week, Rob. But 3 could be my favorite poster of the entire series.
Now, I think the VHS cover of Child's Play was a little bit different. It had Chucky like holding the knife up, and I always remembered that one being frightening as a child. I think that one's my favorite. But
sure,
look
because I
forward
think
to
the studios found out that was the major selling point, the doll.
Yeah. But I look forward to talking about 3 next week.
Yeah, it's going to be a blast. Hang in there. We will protect you from Chucky. We promise.
Yeah.
And Rob and I, join us for the next episode where we'll actually teach the audience how to kick a doll and run away.
See y'all later.
Started getting stranger, and the TV warned of danger. And Chucky said that he was really bugged. 'Cause it isn't very funny being treated like a dummy. So I went and gave that little guy a hug.
Fraser's like, can I loosen this tie?
Stretch.
He's nervously tapping his fingers, and then Niles just like, give it a day. I believe that was your brilliant advice, Fraser.
Yeah, thank you.
And Niles just decides, I'm going to that singles bar. Give me Roz's number. She needs to do whatever magic was worked on Daphne because I'm not going to sit here and dwell. Maybe not the healthiest.
That's not advisable, but, I'm not the boss here. The next scene title card says, where everybody knows her name, which is a Cheers reference.
It is, but I bet you the her is Roz, right?
Yes.
That's what they're getting at.
Because Roz is just such a serial dater. She's always at the singles bar. Niles bursts in and he's like, I forgot to gargle. I'm wearing mismatched socks and I'm so nervous I could wet myself. That's like my opening line from now on.
Oh, yeah. You should just...
I'm ready to party.
And she's like, if you're going to use words like milieu, you might as well show up here with a sore on your lip or something like that.
And a bunch of kids.
Oh, yeah, and a bunch of kids.
I'm like, yeah, that is pretty. It's like sore on your lip is one thing, but bring in a bunch